We are live, and hello, yes, they can see you right now. We are doing our fourth of 5 digital Hangouts, or Geekouts today as part of our digital learning celebration across the state of Indiana. I'm Michelle Green with the Office of Elearning, and I'm glad that everyone is here today. What I'm going to be doing in just a minute is introducing our panelists, but first let me tell you a little bit about our topic. It is social media in the classroom. And you can see that this panel is a little smaller than others because it's a topic that typically people shy away from. But I'm really excited for them to share with you what they've been doing, and more so for you to hear from their students about their experiences as digital leaders or learners, or both. We started Friday Geekouts as part of Indiana's Digital Learning Month. And as you can see, a Geekout is simply a Google Hangout on air where a group of enthusiastic educators have come together to talk about a topic related to digital learning. Again, today is Digital Learning Day, and so we really want to highlight student voice as part of this activity. Let me see. Let's go ahead and just cut to introductions. So first, if I could have Mrs. Manahan say hello and tell us who's with her.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Manahan from Angola High School, and I've got several lovely ladies here. Some of my pre-AP English 9 students. I've got Lindsay, Trevor, Carly, Caitlin, Sarah, Emily, and Tegan.
Great, and for those of you who are viewing, and we do have a viewer already, we want to let you know that there will be more students joining because currently she's not in class, but soon students will be piling into the classroom, so that's awesome. And Miss Silligan.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I have Lauren, Greg, Jake, Taylor, and then Becca off here to the side, who I'm sure she'll pop in and share lots.
I'm sure we'll give her lots of opportunities. So I'm really looking forward to everybody getting a chance to have a voice. And that's kind of the nice thing about us. Even though we're a small geek out, that means I think all the students will get more opportunity to share. So let's get right to our questions. But before I share my questions, I want to point out that our viewers, now we're at 2. Yeah. I don't know if the kids are logging in or not, but this is good. So they can share questions with us using the blue button inside of the viewer, or they can tweet to us at INELearn. The only thing I'm concerned about is my Twitter stream keeps freezing up a little bit over here and there, being mobile today. But we'll be watching that, and definitely watching our question box inside of the Hangout for questions. So our first question to start us off is I'm going to have the teachers just give us a little synopsis of how they're using social media in the classroom. Sorry, Mrs. Zilligan, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I have a bell. I'm going to try to catch it in a minute. I'm sorry if I don't. Using social media in the classroom. Well, one of the things we've done this year to start it off is we had all the students create blogs, so they're out there in digital spaces. And in order to do that, the first few weeks of the entire year were devoted to talking about what does it mean to leave a positive digital footprint. So what does that mean on Twitter, on Instagram, on their blogs? What is the importance of having a positive digital footprint? One of the things that I start right at the beginning of the year that Lauren right here is especially great at is I do a hashtag for Thursday and Friday where students can share out what they're reading. And just giving students opportunities, to connect with social media in positive ways.
Great. A variety of things. I can't wait to hear more details from the kids. Mrs. Manahan?
Okay, we have been using social media mostly on a voluntary basis. At first, I had students tweet out products that they created in class. We did some memes. We did some Instagram type things, and I said, hey, for 5 bonus points, why don't you tweet out your work and mention me, mention our district and our school user accounts, and that'll be a positive message we're promoting and a positive way to use social media. Then we've also tried some other things. We just started class blogs this week, actually. I unveiled them for this group of students, and then we also did a Twitter version of Romeo and Juliet where I created user accounts for all the characters, and then the students put it into modern language with the hashtags and a class hashtag so that they'd all be together. We could storify it.
So that's interesting. So you created characters, and then your students basically tagged the characters in their posts. Is that how that works?
They logged into the character accounts, actually. I had them log in as the characters, so they had to summarize for Twitter. They had to modernize from the Elizabethan language and stay in the character and keep the storyline intact. So it was kind of a fun process. And one student said, "Is this a trick? Is this a trick to get me to use Twitter for fun, or for school, and not for fun?" Sorta, I guess, a trick.
Maybe a byproduct. Well, let me ask you each this, and your kids certainly can ring in too. How has this transformed your students' learning experience and possibly even your partnership with parents in the classroom? Have you seen any of that taking place? Like you had the student ask you, Mrs. Manahan, if you're trying to trick them into using Twitter, but are you seeing other ways that your students are basically evolving as learners now that they're using social media for learning?
It's given them a different perspective on social media. I think that it doesn't have to be just for who's fighting with whom, or what somebody had for lunch, or who's dating whom, and that maybe they can use it for other reasons. And I am starting to get a lot of parents follow me on Twitter, because I tweet out lots of pictures of what we're doing in class on a weekly basis. Here's what we're doing today in class, and here's what we're doing in class, and spirit things for school spirit. A lot of those. I'm also a student council advisor, so that's really helped.
So great, you're getting a lot more communication out. That definitely is always a plus. Mrs. Zilligan?
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things this year was I do the same thing. I tweet out a lot of what we're doing in class, and have class hashtags that students can use to put things out there to show off their work or to share with others. And the few parents that do use social media, to get comments back from them, like, "Thanks for including my student," or "It's so great to see what's happening in your classroom." Really neat experience. And to have, I think, parents see that these things aren't all bad. I think it's good for us as teachers to be modeling these things and saying, hey, your students can be on these and be making great decisions. They're not all bad tools. And then seeing the students think through those decisions that they're making with social media, and seeing what happens when they do the right things with social media. I'm seeing them think more, which I'm a huge advocate of. They're thinking through, what am I putting out there? Why am I putting it out there? How can I put it out there well? And why does it matter?
Which are all really great critical thinking questions, regardless if you're doing it for school or just in your personal life. I mean, we talk about digital footprints, and today I've been watching the Stop, Drop, and Tweet hashtag, and a lot of those schools and classrooms that are sharing are talking about their footprints, and I would imagine your students are developing some pretty powerful footsteps, or footprints, if you would, tattoos even, given their experience. So let's turn it over to the students. I'm going to start with Ms. Zilligan's students. What are some of the things that you've learned since your teacher has started doing this kind of stuff? This could be, it could be the digital citizenship kind of lesson, but it could just be anything.
Well, personally, not only in our English class, but in another class, well, the innovations class, we actually use social media to reach out to like mentors or communicate with, for example, like experts in the field. Like for example, one of the students is working with Duke Energy to get a light ordinance signed here in Noblesville. And she reached out with him via social media, and they communicate back and forth, like via social media, email, and stuff like that. So I think that's a great part of what we're starting to do here, at least in Noblesville, is using social media as a professional tool, which is absolutely wonderful, and then making contacts and working with others outside of our school.
So I'm glad you mentioned that you're in the innovation class. Anybody else in that group part of the innovation class, or are you it?
I'm it, yeah.
You're it, huh? You know, that's a world-famous class, so I think that's pretty neat that you mentioned it. I'm curious, because you have, yeah, there should be some high-fiving happening back there. So you have at least 2 teachers who are doing this. What does that make, when you walk into another classroom when you're not connected in this way, how does that change who you are as a student, or does it? Maybe it doesn't. Has that had I guess I'm asking, since you now know that you can learn this way, has that impacted you in your other classes that are not necessarily connected like this?
To be 100% honest, it does. Not using social media in almost all my classrooms, it almost makes me feel like, okay, there's so much more I could be doing with this topic. But I'm very limited to how the system or how the interpretation of the system is set up right now. So I think it does change a lot of how I view that class, because not that I look down upon it, but that I don't feel like I'm getting everything that I could be out of it, if that makes sense.
It definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
And this is a big part of what we talk about with our Who's Your Student digital leaders, and how do you start those conversations. That's hard because you're the student and you're being respectful to your teachers. So I appreciate you being very, very transparent and open about that. That's not easy to do. For your peers, for your classmates, so since Mrs. Zilligan started doing this, how has your learning changed?
Well, in some of my classes, we have video notes or videos that we're able to watch back. And so I think that allowing to watch the lesson more than once also allows you to remember the information, and if you need to go back and revisit the lesson, you're able to do that. And you don't have to, I guess, not necessarily meet with the teacher one-on-one, but you're able to kind of learn at your own pace too, by watching the video back.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I like about what you guys are doing with your blogs too, right? Because, I mean, you own your blog. That's the neat thing about being a blogger. It's yours. How has that changed your approach to writing and different things that you're doing for your English class?
I think it's made me a lot more cautious and more, it makes me think a lot more about what I'm writing to make sure that whatever I write is positive and has meaning to it.
I think with my blog, it has made me more confident. I feel like on my blog, I can really put how I feel, and I put that through my writing, so it just has gave me confidence.
So can I follow up with you girls about your blogs? Because traditionally when you turn a paper into your English teacher, there's an audience of one, right? You might have done a small group revision or editing and had some sharing with some people in your class, but now your blog is out there. How have you set up your blog, your personal settings? Are they open to the public? Is it for your class?
Mine's open to the public.
And mine is as well, yeah.
So does that change your perspective? I mean, I know you said you were very cautious and mindful about what you're saying, but knowing that you have people that are reading your blog who may or may not know you and can interact with you is taking it up to a whole new level, isn't it?
Yeah.
What has that done for you as a communicator?
That's a good
You
question.
didn't know there'd be a test, did you? I'm sorry. Think about it. There's not a right or wrong answer. I'm really excited for you to hear that you just made those choices to make your blogs public. I think that says a lot about who you are as a learner, that you're willing to be open in that way. It's tremendous.
And I don't even think they know how often I use their blogs. I don't think the students are aware how many people actually do see them. So that's been interesting too, to see particularly great students who are doing it really well not even know what they're leaving out there for others to see, but it's happening.
Yeah, I asked a group earlier from the HSDL kids, and I said, do you look at your statistics? Do you see who your visitors are? Are you looking at your analytics? And they said, oh yeah, they are. They're watching. They want to know who's looking. So, anybody else from this group before we shoot over to Miss Manahan's class?
I kind of just wanted to say what Taylor over there said, that I've almost found more meaning to my work. There's a meaning behind it just besides getting a grade to it, I guess, and that I can get my ideas out there and connect with other people like that.
You guys really set a good course here. All right, Miss Manahan, are your ladies ready to respond?
Ready? They said, what's the question?
No problem. Let me repeat it. So, since Mrs. Manahan started doing this tweeting and you guys acted as Romeo and Juliet on Twitter, how has your learning changed for you? So what have you learned in the process, or what are some things that you just didn't expect to get out of this, maybe?
Who's gonna be brave?
Did you learn, let me say this, was it different using Twitter to respond? I mean, you could have sat down with paper and drawn pictures and talked like you were Romeo and Juliet, but to do that through Twitter, was that somehow different?
I think it was interesting to see how like my classmates would answer the reply to my tweets and like how I would say something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it helped us to interact and like write our own version of Shakespeare. And it helped us to understand Shakespeare differently because you got to you had to dissect the line of Shakespeare and find out like a deeper meaning in Shakespeare.
Absolutely. So you enjoyed getting feedback from your peers in terms of retweets or responses?
Mm-hmm. It was interesting because then we had to work together to find out if like my tweet went along with your tweet. It was interesting to like work together with that.
Sounds really cool. Great. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to add something to their experience?
There you go, Carly. I think it was good because we got to like put it how we talk like on a daily basis instead of, it's kind of hard to understand like what he's trying to say, but when we got to like, she said dissect it, we got to like talk like together, like I guess, I don't know, and to like use what we say every day. It's not something new to us.
So can I just ask you out of curiosity, you had this assignment, and I'm sure you had class time to work on it, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever go on Twitter after school, not during, or maybe not during class time, and check to see what was happening with Romeo and Juliet, even though you didn't have to?
Well, when I went home, I showed my parents what we were working on, and they thought it was really cool to see how we were using that, and they wanted to see like how it would work, and they said like maybe other classes should start doing that more often too.
And just for the record, no one paid her to say this, correct?
No.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, I'm going to stay with your class for a minute. Anybody who wants to answer this can. I was going to give this question to the teachers, but I love hearing from the kids, and so ladies, I hope you don't mind. But how did your teacher introduce the idea of using social media with you? Did she prepare your parents? Because I gathered that some of you shared with your parents this, but what kind of things did she do to say, to prepare you for saying, we're going to be going online, we're going to do some social media classwork today instead of paper and pencil or doing something in a learning management system?
She just kind of, she uses Google Docs, so she got an intro up for us, and the people that haven't used Twitter before, she had to show them the ropes and stuff, so
there was some support, there's some different lessons, right? Some of you guys probably already had a feel for Twitter and maybe we're just using it in a new way, and then others were brand new to it.
yeah.
Did you guys have some conversations about how to help each other getting started?
Yeah, we all helped each other figure it out, and it was really fun. Avery never used Twitter before, but
I think they just called Avery out.
What do you think, Avery?
Well, at first I was confused because I'd never done it, but I mean, with the Google Docs, it really helps set everything like out and how we need it, because we all wrote down our lines. So then once we got to Twitter, all we had to do was copy and paste it. So it was, and then she projected the tweet deck on the board, so we could see our conversation popping up. So once we had the Google Docs all set up, we could easily transfer it to Twitter.
So you learned quite a bit. I mean, you still drafted, right, like you would for any kind of writing, but you learned about streams you mentioned the TweetDeck, and so you learned about streams and how to search and pull information up out of social media. I think one of the things I found most interesting when I learned about Twitter is that what a powerful research tool it could be. And we already heard a student, and he's nodding, you know, it really is. It's just a powerful way to access expertise out in the real world in real time. So really neat. I'm glad you guys had that experience. So Ms. Zilligan, how did you go about introducing the idea of blogging to your students? Was it new to almost all of them? And what did you do to help get them started?
There was so much, just like that pre-work, I guess, that we had to do before we got on blogging. And I think for me, it was really important that we spend a lot of time talking about what is this digital footprint, actually like doing close readings on articles of people who were affected by bad social media choices, looking at, you know, actually looking at Instagram photos that people had gotten in trouble for using and asking the question why, what makes this photo troublesome, things like that. And then having them practice things like, I think I remember the student who was just talking, but she mentioned using a Google Doc or something like that first. So having students do things offline before they put it online. So, you know, we did the post-it blogging where we would post it, we would put it like did a writer's response on a post-it and then put it on a chalkboard, and then students commented back, and then there was a troll that was planted among the class that was meant to give like bad comments, and so we talked about, you know, how does that feel and how there's a real possibility that that happens. And then it was the designing of the blog and thinking through, okay, now what are you going to do with all of this information and knowledge that you have? But there was a lot of front loading before we even got to the putting ourselves out there.
It sounds like you thought through a lot of things. I mean, to teach how to respond to trolls is an extremely powerful lesson. So it sounds like you thought of a lot. Let me ask the kids, was there any part of the preparation that was really important to you, or a part that, and now that you've been in the process of writing and I guess responding and learning this way, did you think would be good advice for somebody who was just starting out? Ms. Zilligan's group?
Well, Ms. Zilligan was teaching about like our online footprint, social media, and all that stuff. Like, this is the innovations class. Like, I already knew about most of that. And Mr. Wintrick, like, he didn't like take all the time to like introduce it like Ms. Zilligan did. He was like, basically, guys, you are gonna have a social media account. If you have another account and there's just not that good stuff on it, you know, make a new one or delete that one. But this is your professional account. You have to keep it clean. And then he also took a day once we got started in the school year of how to use Twitter, what's bad and good, or like why is this, you know, that's not a good idea, and how to use it professionally and smart as to like you tweet a tweet, you tag certain people to get more like retweets or whatever. And so he focused on how to use social media, like expanding your
to amplify your voice.
Yeah, and then also how to use it smart, and
great examples. And you're right, that those are things that we don't just know. You have to learn how to be strategic in your use. So very good. Anybody else in Ms. Zilligan's class? Let's go ahead to our next question, actually. So how do you see yourself as a digital learner? Or it could be, what does it mean to you to be a digital learner?
I think for me, digital learning for me is more allowing the student.
Students, please report to the office. Dallas Ritter, Courtney Merritt, Brian McBride, Alexis Gunzer.
We knew this would happen. That's okay. Go ahead. Thank you.
Allowing the student to kind of expand their knowledge on their own using technology and social media and stuff, and the teacher kind of
I don't want to say not teaching, because I know Miss Illigan is a great teacher and stuff, but almost more guiding instead of teaching.
Yeah, she gives you guidelines, but she lets you use your own knowledge and lets you kind of do what you want to do, but at the same time, like, guiding you through that and making sure that you are on the right path.
It sounds like she did a lot of work to set you up to be successful.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
fair. And then she's there to kind of hang around just in case you need her while you're on the path. Is that?
yeah. And that's my favorite part about her is she does a lot of it herself. Like our blog, she also has a blog, and seeing like what she posts and like how she set up her blog really helped me develop my blog. And I really I'm thankful that she tries the stuff on her own first and then has us try it, because I like examples, and like seeing her do it helps me get ideas on how I want to do mine.
It's kind of neat that we're all digital learners, right? I think that's pretty awesome. I also like what you said, though. It's as a digital learner that you have models. So that's a really good example, too. So on the other side of Mrs. Zilligan, is there anybody that wanted to chime in on how you see yourself as a digital learner, or how you might define what a digital learner is now that you've been experiencing it yourself?
Kind of what you said earlier about how the teacher kind of lets you do what you want in a sense, but just kind of keeps you on track. Like, for example, on the e-learning days, that was when we really developed our blog, and she had multiple pictures that kind of talked you through on how to do it, and then she also linked her blog, again, like she said, so we could see what she had her blog, and she modeled it well.
I'm really glad you brought up your e-learning days, because that was an online class day, right? You guys were working without being in the classroom. So there's a lot of folks that think that means you're working by yourself on a computer. What was that like for you as a digital learner? Were you really alone, or do you feel like you were still part of a class in that experience? Was it different? Was it very different for different people?
I felt like I was part of a class. Because there's discussions. Like, I remember one e-learning day, Ms. Zilligan had a discussion where we could ask our peers and ask her questions if we had any questions while we were doing our e-learning day. So I didn't feel alone. I felt like I still had a teacher and my peers around if I had any.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of, even last year when we first had them, a lot of classes just, well, not just, but they have discussions on there, so you kind of feel part of a class, and Ms. Zilligan also had the discussion. But more than that, like, I mean, there's times that there's a certain time period that you can like ask your teachers questions and stuff. So if you need help, then they're there when you need it.
Yeah, because if you put your head down on your desk, right, and you're frustrated, they're not going to see you. You kind of got to reach out. So that makes me want to ask you, and I think you guys are doing such a great job sharing. Are there some skills that digital learners need to learn that are different than your traditional student? So, like, let's say you're in the building and you're just doing your own thing, just like you would 20 years ago. Are there some things that you need to know now as a student, if you're a digital learner, that will help you be more successful?
I absolutely think yes. The way I look at, if you're not going to be a digital learner, like in school, like you're going to be kind of going to class, doing whatever your teacher says, and like just kind of going through the motions or whatever. But I think if you're going to be a digital learner, and like if you want to be successful in whatever you're doing digitally, you have to be able to take, or be willing to take risks, be willing to contact people, or put something out there that that will, like, people will see. Like, for example, someone's writing a book in the innovations class right now. Like, she is having to put that out there, as you can keep it in your, like, to yourself, not have any like rejection or anything. But when you put it out on social media, then you have a chance for feedback, then you have a chance for constructive criticism, but you also get the stuff that's not constructive criticism or whatever it may be. But I think the big difference between a digital learner, a student, and like someone that doesn't participate not as much is like the willingness to take risks.
I also think like taking the initiative, I guess, to get your ideas out and not necessarily not wait, but lean on, I guess, your teacher to tell you what to do.
Very impressed, guys. Your whole class is just really phenomenal. And I can see that Mrs. Manahan's class has arrived, and so I'm going to go ahead and we'll go back to them and give them a chance to answer this question as well, because I know they were kind of getting settled in now that the class has actually started. We haven't got any questions yet from the field, and my Twitter seems to be updating. So we do have 4 viewers, so almost a whole handful. That's, I think, exciting stuff. And so if you are viewing and you have a question for the kids or for their teachers, we'd love to hear those. But let's go ahead and open the mic back up for Mrs. Manahan's class and let them tell a little bit about how they see themselves as digital learners, or how they might define what a digital learner is.
Anybody? How do you define yourself as a digital learner? Yeah, I've got a couple of brave souls.
Great.
Well, I'm Ethan Evans, and I'm in Mrs. Manahan's 6th period. I see myself as a digital learner by, well, I define a digital learner as being someone who can use technology to expand their reach of knowledge by learning from the stuff other people post. Like, I have to give an example to really explain it, but like, okay, like say you can't do your math homework and you can't find the time to go see your teacher. You can ask for help online on Google and Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that, and get help from someone out there, from one of your friends.
Absolutely, using a network, right? Reaching out to folks digitally. Yeah, good example. I like the word that you used too, the word expand. That's a pretty powerful word when it comes to our learning.
I see myself as a digital learner by easily being able to go over every single assignment I've gotten this year online. Everything's organized, everything's easy, everything is just right there at the touch of a button. And me being not the most organized person, I feel like it's super easy being able to go over anything in like the touch of a couple clicks. And I see myself personally with all my friends. I feel like we all appreciate the internet and everything, because we have the ability to go over anything we really need to in like a couple clicks. Like I said, Google, anything like that, trustful resources. It's really easy to be able to get information we need. Even if it's going to take a while, it's easier than having to go to the library or anything like that.
Okay, so are there any others in Ms. Manahan's class that wanted to bring in on being a digital learner and what that means to you these days? Okay, so if not, I'm going to go to the last prepared question, and we'll keep watching for questions from our viewers. The last question was for the teachers, but students certainly can weigh in also. And I think actually Mrs. Zilligan's class, her students have certainly given us some food for thought with this question. What value have you seen as a result of using social media for learning? So basically, what are the outcomes that you've had from taking this risk on?
Like outcomes, like what am
outcomes?
Okay. I think I've just seen so much transparency from a student that you don't see when they're turning in like a printed off piece of paper, for example. And I see them struggle to find their voices, like in the process of trying to create something or design something or write something. The fact that they know that I am not their only audience at times just changes the whole way that they seem to think about things, and then the end product is just so much better. It's so much, like I said, more transparent, it's much more real, it's much more true to who I think I like to think I know my students pretty well. It's much more true to their individuality. And so and that's just very satisfying to see that they're figuring out their learning for themselves. Like, how can I make this connect to we talk a lot about identity. How can this connect to your identity? How does this connect to your brand? And to see them making those connections and sticking to it, I think I see the process. It doesn't end, right? So that, like, you ask for outcomes, and it's like, I don't think we've arrived to an outcome yet sometimes, but it's seeing a constant change in how they're learning and how they're adjusting and what new decisions they're making and how they're trying to grow. Yeah, I like that. I don't know that I've seen outcomes because we're not finished yet.
No, and I value you saying that. I think that there's something to be said that there's not it's a process. Your class is truly in a process, but clearly the fact that you recognize that their individuality is being honored, and that, I mean, how much more diversified or differentiated can you be when you allow each student to develop their voice? I think that's a huge outcome, even though you're still in the process. So thank you.
And how it's over time.
Oh, well, go ahead.
No, how their voices change. Like, you see, I mean, this is not like a techie thing, but for like even like a Socratic seminar, I think because we're practicing these things in digital ways, when it even comes to face-to-face connections, they're so much more thoughtful, because they know that their audience is so much greater than this classroom. So it's just they have a perspective of that, which is great.
And I'm glad you actually added that, because a lot of times we think when we're talking about digital learning that we're losing some of that face-to-face opportunity to communicate and collaborate. And that doesn't, just because we are doing things digitally doesn't mean that you're losing that. As a matter of fact, it could be enhancing it. So glad you added that. Mrs. Nanahan, what would you like to share as far as how you're seeing, and maybe again, there's not an end product per se, although I know your Twitter, the novel, the play chat is concluded, but what kind of outcomes are you seeing from your students?
Well, I agree. The student voice is so much more represented, and they do seem to, they aren't really losing any of that face-to-face, because while the product may be digital, there's still the collaboration of creating that digital content, and sometimes the students are more authentic in their conversations with each other as they prepare that end digital product that they know will share with the world, and their personalities definitely come through more in that end product. It's also made our learning more transparent. The parents are seeing more of our work, the community is seeing more of our work, the world, if we use Twitter and tweet and social media, the world's seeing more of our product and more of the good things that we're doing, and seeing our learning process happening instead of just the test scores that are published in the newspaper. It's also made my students a lot more independent than any other year past, that they just seem to take more initiative if they are familiar, if it's kind of living in their world, and even when it's not in their world, it's taking a risk, a really positive risk, and creating a more independent learner along the way.
Excellent. I cannot think of a better note for us to end on. I'm sure that both classrooms I really wanted to convey today. Is there any lingering thoughts that we should open up to at this point?
Well, I have two things. Like, what value do you see as a result of using social media? I think right now, at least the way I see social media being used in the classroom, is that's very like, I think, basic of how we could be using it, to be honest. To me, it's what's the next step? Like, we're at it now, and it's great, but what's the next step? And I don't see any reason why learning should just be in the classroom. I think learning needs to be every day, wherever you go, type of thing. And using social media in a effective way, whatever that might be, it's different for every situation, is great. Like, for example, this ed chat. This should be something that is going on all the time. Students' feedback and teachers is very powerful, and it can be. And also, I think using social media, every student has a power And using social media will hopefully help each and every one of us realize the power we have and utilize it. Because one thing I've learned in the innovations class is students can change the world. Students can be innovative. Students don't have to just be in the classroom doing classwork and stuff. So I think using social media or any kind of technology, creating a network, collaborating with people, and even connecting schools would be a great next step.
You have so many great ideas, and I want to make sure you know that we have a state, kind of like an EdChat hashtag, and it is not just for the teachers. I want you to know that we love having student voice use it. So it's that INELearn. And then, of course, today, because it's Digital Learning Day, we're doing a special hashtag stop, drop, and tweet. And so you guys have some amazing examples. I have no doubt about it. I would love for you, if your teachers are cool with it, if you do stop, drop, and tweet, and share some examples of your thinking, of maybe a product that you have, maybe your blog, but definitely encourage you to get the student voice out there for Indiana educators. You guys have some really powerful messages, and I so appreciate you and your teachers for taking the time today to share that. Anything else from Ms. Villigan's group before we switch back over to Ms. Manahan's? I said Villigan. I meant Zilligan. I am so sorry. I told you I would do that.
Bye.
Okay, Ms. Manahan, anything closing?
Any students have any final comments, any final thoughts on social media in the classroom? No? Oh, I think they're all being shy. All the stragglers are shyer today.
I understand. It's been a long Friday the 13th, no less. And if it's like down here in the South, we've got tons of rain. So thank you all for sharing Digital Learning Day with INELearn. And like I said, we've had viewers, and I absolutely plan to share this in the communities of practice for English teachers. I just so excited that you guys were able to join us and that your students were able to share so eloquently. Thank you very much for making the time to share today.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and we'll say goodbye.